I started interrupting my boss mid-sentence and explaining his own ideas back to him. It all began when my manager, Brad, couldn't let any woman finish a sentence. Jen, our lead developer, would be explaining her code architecture, and Brad would cut her off with what Jen is trying to say is, then repeat her exact words like he just invented them. Every meeting, every client call, same thing. Jen would be mid-explanation about a security framework she built from scratch, and Brad would interrupt to clarify her own technical specs. The worst part? He only did it to women. Never once interrupted me or Chad from sales. Jen tried everything. Please let me finish. Then more direct. Brad, I need to complete my thought. She even pulled him aside privately. Brad would nod, promise to be more mindful, then interrupt her 3 times in the next meeting. But Brad wasn't alone. Once he normalized it, Chad started doing it too. Then Rick from operations. I watched Kate from marketing get interrupted 8 times while presenting her own campaign. The men wanted to help her articulate better. The breaking point was a client pitch. Jen was presenting her security infrastructure when Brad interrupted 3 times in 5 minutes. The client looked confused. Jen's hands were shaking. Then Chad jumped in to clarify the technical aspects of Jen's own code. She just stopped talking entirely. After the meeting, she told me she was updating her resume. Why bother speaking if they're just going to explain my own ideas back to me? That night, my wife said, give him a taste of his own medicine. Start interrupting him. The idea stuck. Monday's team meeting, Brad was explaining quarterly goals. So our primary focus, what Brad is trying to say, I cut in, is that we need to increase revenue. Let me help him get to the point faster. The room went silent. Brad's mouth hung open. I was getting to that. Of course you were, Brad. Continue. He started again. The revenue targets, Brad means we need 20% growth. I interrupted. Should I break that down for everyone? Every meeting, every time Brad spoke, I was there. Let me translate that. What you're attempting to articulate. Here, let me simplify. I used his exact phrases. When he presented budgets, I'd interrupt to add clarity to basic math. When he explained his own schedule, I'd cut him off to help him communicate more effectively. Then I expanded to Chad and Rick. The first time I interrupted Chad's interruption of Jen, she actually smirked. When I explained Rick's own proposal back to him while he was still presenting, Kate texted me laughing emojis. Brad started unraveling. He'd raise his voice to talk over me. He'd say, as I was saying 5 times in a single meeting. His face would turn red when I'd start with what Brad really means. When Chad snapped, can you let me finish? I responded with Brad's favorite. I'm just trying to help you communicate more effectively. Even Brad looked uncomfortable hearing his own words. Thursday afternoon, Brad called me into his office, face already red. Your behavior is completely unacceptable. You can't keep interrupting people. It's disrespectful and disruptive. I sat back. Interesting. I've watched you interrupt Jen 65 times this month. I started keeping count. That's completely different. How? I'm adding value and clarity. I pulled out my phone. Want to hear last week's recording where you interrupted Jen to repeat her exact words? His face went purple. If interrupting is disrespectful, Brad, you've been disrespecting half our team for 2 years. But if it's adding value, then I'm just adding value too. Which is it? The silence lasted forever. He mumbled about misunderstandings and communication styles. Brad tried writing me up for creating a hostile work environment, but when HR asked for specifics, they questioned why he hadn't reported the women for occasionally pushing back. It backfired spectacularly. HR mandated an inclusive communication workshop where the facilitator used Brad as an example of what not to do. Not by name, but everyone knew. Brad sat through 2 hours learning why interrupting is disrespectful, while I sat behind him, nodding with exaggerated concern. Then they announced Jen got promoted to vice president. Her first act was terminating Brad for persistent communication issues that hindered team performance and promoting me to his position.